From the third White Lion album, Big Game, that is the band's remake of the Golden Earring classic, Radar Love, and we started with the title track from the band's very first album, Fight to Survive, and the occasion is the arrival of a guy that, well, over the years I've heard every rumor of Officer Wayne, actually, with the beer. That's actually who Vito was most excited to possibly meet here tonight after all these years of being on the radio.
I've been hearing about this forever.
Get up on the mic so everyone can hear you. People have been waiting 15 years to hear from you, man. So Vito Bratta is here. I've heard every single thing over the last 15 years from you chopped your fingers off in a deli accident. What else have we heard about Vito? You must have heard him, too.
Oh, I heard the pizza.
You delivering pizzas for a living?
Pizza? Oh, I own the pizza. Did I own the place? Oh, I should own the place. The pizza, the deli?
I heard the deli, I heard the pizza, I heard something was wrong with... What else? What were the... You worked at a Jiffy Lube?
I've been packing sausages in my garage, everything.
The ultimate rock recluse here, you know, I had Axl Rose in here last May, and we thought he was a recluse, but I'm telling you, the people have been emailing me forever, and it's a really weird thing, because I've been telling people all this time, I'm like, you know, Vito's a good friend. I mean, we talk. I see you came to my house with your mother and your lovely girlfriend for Christmas time. You bought my daughter presents.
I'm like, thanks for having us.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, Vito's around, but people all over the world are like, where is this guy? What happened?
Hiding in plain sight. They're just not looking.
And exactly, just go to Staten Island. You'll find him. You'll go to Jiffy Lube. But the truth is that none of that stuff is the case. You've just been... Tell everybody where you've been.
Yeah, what have I been doing? None of that stuff. Just, you know, when White Lion broke up, I formed another band.
Which was called what?
We never made it to the name stage. You know, there was, we just never made it to that stage. You know, we did some demos, and it was always doing demos here and doing demos there, and band, you know, one band led to another band, and, you know, at that time period was all of that, that's when the Seattle thing was coming out strong. And, you know, everybody talked since then about how that killed the 80s, and that was the height of it. You know, that was really when it was just on everybody's mind and on the radio and everything. And it's funny because I did some demos and I played them. You know, I had to fool around. I had to try to trick the record label and say, you know, I'm a manager now. How would you like to listen to this tape? And they listen to it and they'd say, well, this is exactly what we're looking for. I say, oh, by the way, that's my new band. And they're like, you know, oh.
The guy from White Lion, we can't have this.
Well, yeah, we can't.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, in other words, it's like, it's not accepted for me to change, to evolve.
You know, I always found that dynamic really interesting in the music business because I worked for people that don't know, I go back with White Lion. White Lion's a very a special band to me that means a lot because it was a group that when Fight to Survive was only a Japanese import, you know, I was probably the first person in America to play that record.
I'm not sure the White Lion would have happened without Eddie Trunk, honestly.
Well, thanks.
You were there, I mean... You know, the progression of how you get signed to a label and all of that is like you pack the clubs. And why were we packing clubs? Because Eddie Trunk was playing us on the radio.
Yeah, and you know, the thing is that it meant a lot because it was such... I remember getting that record, and it was a Japanese import. There was no U.S. deal, and loving it. And then I had you guys in for an interview when it came out. You and Mike came in, and I still have the vinyl that you signed to me and put, you know, thanks, you were our first interview or whatever. And then everything just happened from there. And it's funny because the very first gold record I ever got in my life was you guys giving me a copy of Pride when it went gold on stage at L'Amour, which, of course, is the club we talk about so much. No matter where you're listening to this show, everyone knows L'Amour in Brooklyn.
Right.
And that's basically where you guys broke out of. So, you know, I was there and saw so much of what went down positively and negatively with the history of the band. But I think the most astonishing thing that people have not been able to grasp with you in particular is that you were a guy and are a guy. I mean, you were regarded as, rightfully so, one of the best guitar players to emerge out of that whole scene.
Well, I mean, that's a compliment coming from you.
But I'm serious. I mean, I'm not just blowing smoke. I mean, you were on the cover of the magazines. You were compared to Eddie Van Halen. People said you played like him, looked like him, whatever the heck it was. I mean, and no one can... The biggest thing I've gotten from the last 15 years of email, people asking me about you constantly is... how is it that this guy, that's that massive of a guitar player, we haven't heard anything from him in so long? But they don't know the personal side of it and the business side of it, and that's what I hope you can kind of let him in on a little bit.
You know, I let things affect me that I shouldn't have let affect me. I'll never forget someone, you know, higher up in the music business, listening to a new stuff that I did after White Lion, and tell me, listen, this is the problem with you. And I said, what? You know, he said, you play just a little bit too well. He says, you got to try to play a little sloppier. Maybe don't tune your guitar. You know, try not to play too flashy. Try not to play this. He said, try to play like you just started playing. And I can't say on the radio the words I told him. You know, I can repeat those words.
When you do my other show, you can.
Yeah, okay. But, you know, when someone's trying to say, like, well, we're not going to accept you because you're playing too well. And I knew that was a crock. I mean, that you know, it was just, like I said, it was that whole Seattle time period and everything. And I said, what are you trying to say? Like, you know, is it the Kurt Cobain thing? Because I thought Kurt Cobain was a great guitar player. What, he didn't play all the scales that, you know, us 80s guys did and all of that stuff, but, you know, I don't think by telling a person that you need to play like Kurt Cobain means that you're not playing well. I thought the guy was phenomenal. As a matter of fact, Kurt Cobain wanted me to, I got more influence to play again by watching that guy than by watching anybody else. Mm-hmm. But the problem is I already played a certain way. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't turn back the clock and say, okay, I'm going to try to play like this, or I'm going to try to play like that. And especially from coming from a band from an era that's so criticized, you know, with the hair thing and all of that stuff, you know, people would have picked up on it and say, you know, who does he think he is now? I had to just play the way I played. Yeah. And unfortunately, you can't get, you know, what people don't understand that nowadays it's different. You can set up your own website, but this didn't exist in 1992. Right. You had to go through the record labels, and a record label said, we don't accept Guitar Heroes or whatever. Right. And I said, well, I don't accept you, and I walked away. That was my way of dealing with it. It was probably the wrong way because I've ended up burying myself, but that's just how I reacted to it. Well, and everyone reacted that different. I mean, that stigma was certainly not exclusive to White Lion or to you at all. I mean, 90% of bands I've had in here that started in the 80s have all told a similar story. A band like Skid Row, as successful as they were, they actually tried to do something, like you said earlier. They did a band under a different name. They called it Ozone Monday. And had a different singer, and the same deal. It was like, well, this is really cool, but then, it's three guys from Skid Row. Well, we're not going to sign this. Right. So it was ridiculous that was going on. And I think I hope what's happened is over time now, whereas in the mid to late 90s, you couldn't even mention bands of that era without being laughed at, whether they were good or bad. Mm-hmm. Now I think it's a case where people actually evaluate that music how it should be, whether it was good or bad, not from what decade it came from. Right. And I think I'm hoping we've moved, and I think we have moved more in that direction, especially in the last few years, with people being a little more open-minded, and maybe younger people discovering it, or people like myself who grew up with it, and you that have supported it and grew up with it and played it and whatever, have all kind of said, you know, okay, there were too many people uptight back then, and you worked in these kind of places. They wanted to know, a record store wanted to know, okay, where do we put this White Lion record? Is this a metal band? Is this a pop band? Is this what kind of band is this? They were uptight back then. And it's almost like they didn't want to accept this and accept that. And I personally, I really don't want to have any criticism of that time period. I thought it was great. Yeah. And people want to make fun of the Hairspray, fine. I don't care. I mean, I've always said that the term, to me, hairband, it doesn't anything about the music. It says what people look like. Some people looked ridiculous. A lot of artists have come here and say, yeah, I looked ridiculous. So did everyone. Ozzy looked ridiculous in the 80s. Yeah, I don't ever see the Shot at the Dark video? Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think it was hair. It's about the music, whether it was good or bad. I was sitting around with a bunch of friends of mine when that Led Zeppelin DVD came out. And I said, now that's hair. I mean, Robert Plant's sitting there with, that's hair. It's not the hair. It's, it was the whole thing, the ballads. What's a rock band doing playing ballads? And I have no regrets about any of it. And for you, the biggest hit you ever had was a ballad, When the Children Cry. That was the biggest charting single, right? Yeah. The highest charting single. Yeah, that made it. I think I made it up to number 3. I don't think it I just remember it being a number 3.
Well, it probably says it on one of the catalysts